This is Radio Free Galaxy. It's time to go. Welcome to Radio Free Galaxy. I'm Travis Lee. We all have dreams when we're younger, when we're children, when we're growing up as young adults. Some of us want to be firemen. Some of us want to have the perfect wedding.
Some of us want to have kids.
Some of us want to have kids. Some of us don't want to have kids, and they do anyway. But the point is, we have dreams no matter how fantastic they are. And somewhere along the way, life comes along, and for most of us, not everyone, but for most of us, fucks it up. And, we have that unexpected child. We have student loan debt that we have to pay off. So, we can't exactly devote our lives to being a painter or a sculptor because we have to pay the bills. We have family members that get sick and we have to take care of them. Whatever it is, something comes along and we give up on our dreams to create or to mold our lives as we saw our lives becoming when we were kids. But for some of us, we can continue on into middle age and older, still pursuing our dreams. And my guest today on the podcast is my friend Trisha. We've been friends for a very long time. And I want to give her a chance to tell her story and also promote her music. But I think her story is particularly interesting because she's a woman in her 40s and she has a 9-to-5 job, professional. Went to school, right? Have a degree?
I have an associate's degree in accounting.
And somewhere in your early 40s, you decide to keep pursuing your dream and start a punk band with some of your friends and play live shows, record an album, plan a tour.
I mean, that actually happened in my 30s because I was in another punk band prior to this, but I'm still going in my 40s and I started a new band in my fucking 40s. So
Exactly. Well, that's my whole point. Like, you're still not giving up. Anyway, let's introduce you, Trisha Peterson, my good friend. You?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. And my band is Murder Generation.
And your band Murder Generation. We're going to listen to a few tracks from the album. I wanted to play every track from the album because honestly, all 10 songs are about 19 minutes, right? 19 minutes.
We have the whole 10 songs. The album is 10 songs and 18 minutes long, about less than 19, over 18. Right. So,
in true punk rock fashion. So
I'd rather talk more than play every single song, and I would also like listeners to find the tracks that we don't play on their own.
Right, you got to leave a little tease out there.
It's a mystery. I'm all into mystery.
You got to tease that shit so you can sell some records. And you do have physical copies of your records available. Let's just pimp that out right away and tell people where you can.
We do. You can buy our record on Bandcamp. We have a Murder Generation site on Bandcamp, and we also have a website, www.murdergeneration.com. I'm also available on Facebook for private messaging, for local recordings. We try to sell these on our own because everybody takes a cut, and we like try to not allow corporations of any sort to take a cut of what should be going directly to the artist. So you can find me on Facebook under Trisha Peterson, and my profile says that I'm the bassist at Murder Generation. You can send me a message, and I can give you instructions on how to get that record. And the record is $20. If we do need to ship it, it is $5 for shipping because we do media mail, which a lot of people have seemed to be very responsive of. If you're in the local Milwaukee metro area, then I actually personally hand deliver the record, and you can say hello. Oh, special.
And what does somebody have to do to get it signed, like mine?
You just have to request to get a signed copy, and it might take slightly longer for the band members to get together to sign it, but if you want a signed copy, we'll all get together, we'll do the signing, and we'll send it to you.
All right, cool. Well, let's get to it then. Let's talk a little bit before we get into the band or anything. Let's talk, like I was alluding to before, let's talk a little bit about you. Like,
oh geez,
how did you, let's specifically as it relates, let's talk about now to punk rock. How did you first get into punk rock? Who turned you on to punk rock at like what age, and what bands were you listening to first?
Oh geez. Well, I'll say this, like I started off by being a fan of aggressive music in general. Like actually in junior high, I started getting into metal, like because that was kind of the thing back in our era, and I was like into like old Metallica, and I was like a super into Megadeth, loved Megadeth, and I got into Slayer and like whatever. But then specifically, and that was a lot to my our mutual friend, actually, Colleen. Colleen always would have like various mixtapes and whatever, and we were just like, we started going to shows when we were like 13, 14, and I think one of our first concerts was actually a Megadeth concert. And then our friend, our mutual friend, Eric Esser, which
put him out there like that.
I'm gonna put him out there like that because he knows, like he knows. Maybe
okay. I don't know him.
I'm gonna put him out there. He was
I just don't know if you want.
He was like super aggro, aggressive, and he already knows this back in the day that I had a super huge crush on him and all this kind of stuff. Anyways, he started giving Colleen tapes of Bad Religion and the Descendants. He gave me some Dead Kennedys. He gave us The Exploited, and it was when we had cassette tapes and everything was dubbed and you could just like sign. But the one that in Operation Ivy was a big thing, and one of the things that Bad Religion stuck out more than anything to me, because that dude was the guy that always had something like very relevant to say. He kind of like made me question my whole like religious upbringing, in the scientific perspective of the world, and like holy shit,
he's like
man.
a fucking PhD, right?
I think he's got multiple PhDs. I'm not entirely certain, and he also teaches at Berkeley, UC Berkeley. I mean, like that dude's like legit, like no joke. And I mean, I was actually thinking about too, like I was also into like the 90s grunge thing, and that has like obviously elements in punk rock. Like I was super into Nirvana to this day. Like I don't care what anybody says, like I think Nirvana is great because that they got that punk grunge element or whatever. I mean, they came from that. They were.
Speaking of which, check this out. I know that for audio listeners you can't see it, but I just found this 1989 live recording of Nirvana.
Holy crap!
On cassette, and picked it up at a thrift store a couple of weeks ago. I got it right by my tape player. Pretty freaking cool, if you ask me.
Dude, that is that like legit? Like
well, it's like from a guy that was running like a old like GeoCities like website in like the mid to late 90s or whatever.
Oh my God.
And it's got like his GeoCities like address on it, and he was selling like like bootleg copies of Nirvana concerts. It's from 7/7/89.
Oh my God.
The whole concert's on there. I was just starting to listen.
I mean,
to it
and that was and that was back in the day when like bootleg was like way more popular, because I mean, legit, that was the only way that you could get recordings of live
Live shows,
concerts
yeah.
and certain things. But
Mhm.
I mean, regardless, like my roots in punk rock, like I mean, my thing was it was all like for me down the road, everything is always about aggressive music, and punk rock was like super aggressive to me. I mean, even like people don't think that about Bad Religion, but I'm like, man, they got something to say. I mean, and then there was like the Exploited, super aggressive, like bordering thrash. And, you know, it just, everything just kind of like progressed from there, like throughout high school, you know, like, you know, there was that big, you know, grunge period. And, you know, that stuff was pretty aggro and angry and aggressive. And then, I mean, then after high school, it's like, I mean, I was dating this guy and I was in a band and like, you know, this is going to sound super weird, but I got super into black metal, which black metal I swear is like the metal of punk rock, and like people don't understand that, but
Or the punk rock of metal.
or the punk rock of metal, yeah, or that's what I meant. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know.
because
They
you
go
know,
either
I mean,
way.
they think that, you know, other lesser forms of metal aren't metal enough. Like it has to be absolutely black metal or nothing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
it's kind of like punk rock in that way, where punk rock can get a little elitist. You know,
but the other, yeah, I agree. And I mean, my other thing is that going back to the whole like aggressive style of music, I've always been a fan of NWA. Right. I really like Eazy-E. I really like listen to Ice Cube. I like on my way here, I was listening to Method Man and Redman. I mean, because there was something about like 90s rap and early 2000s rap that was very aggressive. And it just goes back to like, I think my thing is like I'm very lyrically driven and I love music that has something to say.
Absolutely.
I don't think black metal necessarily has as much to say, but it's so cold.
I think
it's so cold and so dark, and it's so like primal that it creates place. Like I also listen to funk. Like I really like Parliament and Funkadelic and like some of that stuff. And like I was just like listening to Redbone and like whatever. But
the Brides of Funkenstein.
Like that's like kind of, you know, and I mean I listen to like even jazz, like I can find some aggression in like I really like Thelonious Monk because he was such a aggressive piano player.
Yeah.
But
something doesn't have to be, I've always said that about music, something doesn't have to be like super heavy and super loud to be aggressive. Like I've always found, you know, we bonded over like when we first met. I was like, I don't know, 14, 15. You were
I was older. You were a freshman. I was a sophomore.
We were both super into fucking Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails.
We were.
Like that's
probably... Oh yeah, don't get me started on industrial because yeah, dude, I'm like still all there.
But they're not always the loudest, fastest, you know, in your face songs. But some Nine Inch Nails stuff is some of the most aggressive music you've ever heard in your life. You know what I mean? Like where it's just there's tracks off like Downward Spiral, you know, and just like there's just so
my favorite song I would say by Nine Inch Nails is actually Last. And it's that opening line. It's actually the riff is so heavy and so aggressive, and then that opening line, it was like gave up trying to figure it out while my head got lost along the way. Maybe I'm like not entirely. I'd like
that song stomps.
Yeah,
gave up. You know.
Yeah, gave up. I figured out while my head got lost along the way. Like, dude, like every 15-year-old, 16-year-old was just like, I get this.
And plus, yeah, like a 15, 16-year-old can still get that today. You know, because of the raging hormones, and you got everything going on. You hate your parents, you hate school, and you hear something like that.
Pretty timeless. Your mind.
But we were at the age where it was coming out, where that was new, where it was coming out. And it just fucking blew our minds. You know, like I don't want to speak for you, but for me, it blew my fucking mind. Every time Nine Inch Nails or Marilyn Manson dropped an album early in their careers, it was like, holy fuck. You know, these motherfuckers are trying to say something. They're trying to convey emotions. They're trying to change the fucking world. Why isn't everybody fucking listening to this?
Yeah, so I'm clearly here to promote my album, and like also you know, we have we're a 3-piece, and you know that's kind of unique, I guess, in some of these in the world that we live in, and sharing lead vocals is a thing.
Absolutely.
So sometimes Rich sings lead vocals. Rich Altenbach. He's our mostly our lyricist and guitar player, and
Who went to high school.
He also went to
us.
went to high school.
Did we mention we went to high school together? We went to high school.
Yeah, we went to high school.
Not only did we go to high school,
we rode the bus together.
We rode the yellow bus together.
We rode the yellow bus. That's how we met. And Travis was so like standoffish, and I'm too cool for school and everyone, and I fucking talked to that motherfucker, and he had no choice but to talk to me.
Anyway,
but so yes. Rich was one of our cohorts in school or whatever. So we're not going to play every single song on this album. We're actually going to play we're going to start with the song Blackout. Blackout is I guess it's one of our, like, we wrote this album actually in 2019 before all of this BS of 2020 was happening, and unfortunately, like, we've kind of predicted the state of the world and whatever, and I can't even fathom how this like worked out so well, but Blackout is one of those things. Is like social media like kind of runs our lives, and even the first line is, what do you think would happen when all the screens go black? It's like, if you weren't able to say the shit that you're able to say on social media and whatnot, and attack people and be so extreme and violent, like, what would you do? Like, would this create like a world of zombies? Like, would people not even know like how to react to each other? Because it seems like we've really, I guess the whole virus thing has not really helped. But I think in-person connection has been very lost. And this song has a lot to do with that, which was weird because it was like, now we're like all, it was like, we're like, what would you do? And now we're like all in.
What would you do?
Yeah, what would you do? I don't know.
So what we're going to do is listen to Blackout, and when we're done, we'll come back and talk about some other shit. Here it goes. So that was Blackout by Murder Generation. I don't know if we mentioned in the beginning that this is your first album.
It is.
Self-titled Murder Generation, released last year.
Murder Generation by Murder Generation.
With the song Murder Generation.
There's also a song called Murder Generation.
Are we going to listen to that one? Do you want to talk about Murder Generation? It's one of my favorite songs on the album. I think we should.
All right. So since it's one of your favorites, we won't.
As if.
We won't cancel
Don't
it.
get yourself like too high and mighty that I actually have maybe a favorite. But one of my favorites is actually Blackout that we just listened to. So can you tell us a little?
Well, I mean, we kind of like preface this a little bit
Mhm.
prior to the song playing, but it's kind of like it's kind of like a lead up to like where we're at. It's just you know, people, the whole idea of like keyboard warriors and what would you do if you had to actually talk to somebody in person, and like, like what would we do like if we didn't have the news as it was, or we didn't have social media as it existed? Like, how would you our culture would definitely be way different, because people wouldn't be saying the things that they think that they can fucking say to each other online.
You can't
Like,
get away with the shit face to face that you try to get away with on social media. Like, I, yeah, the things that people say to each other on Facebook and Twitter and wherever they say them, like especially like the
so
gross things that men say to women, and the dick pics. Like you wouldn't walk up to somebody in public and whip out your dick, but for some reason, so many men find like the courage and like the opportunity and the willingness in themselves to send a dick pic to somebody, and it happens so often, and like you would never do that in person. I mean, that's just for an example,
yeah,
but we're talking about things that actually matter.
yeah, I
Like,
mean, and since this song was written in 2019, it's kind of weird how like we're now at a point of where I think a lot of the only interaction that people have is a lot of it is just like, the keyboard warrior type shit, typing on social media and just like flat out insulting other people for no apparently reason. And so it's like when we get out of this and we have to have face to face reactions, like how is that, how are people going to be to each other? Because I mean, I know I've had some personal experience with being bullied and whatnot for wearing a mask, which I mean, obviously it's like when I go to the suburbs and it's generally a certain population of people,
yeah.
and it's very strange to me where I'm like, you guys would not have even looked at me or given me the time of day, but now for some reason you feel so emboldened because all this shit is like circulating that makes you think that it's okay for you to do this to me. And I'm like, I won't stoop to that level. I understand what's happening.
But you know what? Yeah, we've experienced that. People that are whatever. I hate to say people that are mask wearers and people that aren't mask wearers, whatever. But I've seen it the opposite way too, where I was in Salvation Army one day thrifting, and a woman walks in not wearing a mask, and a guy just starts screaming at her, at the top of his fucking lungs in the store, calling her a cunt, in like the middle of a Salvation Army, where I mean, where there's like families and like kids in there. It's the middle of the day, and he's calling this woman a cunt for not wearing a mask. Is she being an asshole for walking into a store without wearing a mask that has, a mask mandate where you have to wear one? And, should the staff be doing something? Yeah, sure. But like, this guy's being an absolute cunt and fucking self by screaming at
Yeah.
the woman, in the store, like, who the fuck do you think you are? And it's just like,
I mean, it's
they're
like
both wrong.
it's
You know
like
what I mean?
prior to this, my existence was in stores and whatnot was already avoiding people with or without a mask, because I mean, I'm sorry, but I really hate the majority of civilization and like where we are. And I don't want to have casual, random conversations with strangers.
I
And
want to talk about the fucking weather.
like,
I don't want to talk
I
about
don't
the
give a
local
shit.
baseball
Like,
team.
I
don't give a
was
fuck.
already avoiding people prior to this. So the fact that people think that they can just like come in your face for any sort of reason, I will clarify, for any sort of reason. And granted, my thing is because I work in a certain area. Like, I actually like legit have 2 gas stations that are super close to my work. And as a smoker, like sometimes I need to go pick up cigarettes, or I need to go, like, I just want to get a beverage of some sort, or some stupid chips or whatever. But I can't go to the Quick Trip down the road because half of those people wear masks and half of them don't, and that's the only place that I've been accosted for wearing a mask.
Right.
And then I have another gas station that's way closer where they are like anti-mask, and like the people that work there don't wear masks, and like everybody that goes in there, apparently that's like an anti-mask like haven.
Yeah.
So I have to go like a mile or 2 miles down the road, 2 miles down the road to a different Quick Trip, because I know like when like based on experience they're wearing masks. It's just like it's absolutely insane that people are so corrupted by things that they hear, and primarily on social media. So it goes back to the whole like if we actually had to talk to each other, like if we actually had to talk to each other face to face, which is obviously clearly really difficult right now, it would be a very different world. But we're just like fed so much garbage from so many different directions that we cannot even be civilized with people that have disagreeing viewpoints. We can't have this like civil discussion. Like, I mean, you and I typically agree on everything, and
do we?
well, for the most part.
For the most part, you're right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's why we're friends. Most friends
That's
do,
why,
right?
I mean, like, isn't that why we're here? I mean, like, whatever.
But how do we get along? How do we learn to get along with people that disagree with us and be okay with it? Because we used to be able to do that in this world.
Right? I'm going to say right now, there is one thing that bugs me more than anything is the name calling.
Yeah.
And actually, I think people that are racist and people that are being called racist are two very different things. Like that's, and it's essentially like, you support this, so you're racist. I'm like, no, that's not how you have a civil discussion.
Or calling a Republican a Nazi.
Yeah, you know, or like, recalling, yeah,
they're clearly not a Nazi.
I've actually had multiple discussions face to face, you know, in safe situations recently in recent history, where I've like converted a lot of people to understand the perspective of the Black Lives Matters and like protests and like and what's happening with the police force and whatever, from a very logical, well thought out, historically relevant perspective. But by calling people names and calling people racist and just like insulting and attacking people, that doesn't get anywhere. Because even on the other side, if somebody calls you a libtard or somebody calls you this or like whatever, it serves no purpose other than like, I'm gonna attack you, I'm not gonna listen to what you say, and fuck you for thinking that. It doesn't work.
It's a reductive form of argument where basically you're only gonna debase yourself lower into the argument until you get to the point of physicality. Well, you know what I mean?
I mean, either physicality or just laying insults into each other. And that's why a lot of friendships are lost, and that's why a lot of things are happening with families. And like, I mean, I agree that like there are certain things that you have to take a strong stance on, but you need to be well educated and you need to provide information, especially to white people at this point. Like you really need to understand your perspective. You need to understand where the history of things are. And
because this country was built on dissent, right?
Exactly.
This country was built on dissent and speaking your mind and protecting your freedoms. And I love that this country was built on that. Maybe we didn't get everything right in the beginning of this country, but one thing we got right is that you should have your personal freedoms as long as you're not impeding on others.
Right.
And if you do have some form of dissent that you have with those in power or your neighbors, there's a way to go about it in this country to make your voice known and to find others of your like and to see if you can change things. There's a way to go about dissent. And
and I agree. And like the next song, like obviously also again was written in 2019. It was actually it's Dissent of Dissent. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that we were I think really just like frustrated with the state of the world. how we never thought there would be a revolution. And it was like, oh, well, we're not, nothing's ever going to change because nobody ever wants revolution. But as soon as people start talking about that, all of these like crazy ideas of how that's going to occur surface. And obviously social media is a big part of that. And obviously the mainstream media is a big part of that. And all of these crazy things happen. And as long as media and social media keep dividing us, and when I say dividing us, I'm saying the people that are below like the top 1%.
No matter what their color, no matter what the religion.
Nothing. Absolutely.
The working class.
Well, as long as the working class is divided amongst themselves, we're gonna maintain. We're gonna maintain. Can you take me seriously after that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Absolutely, even more so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can we maintain? This like disingenuous classist system? I mean, because ultimately what's happening is that people are really trying to divide the working class even more because they don't want us to realize that we're all the same class.
Absolutely.
And class warfare is
it's a real thing. It's a fucking real thing.
Yeah.
It's our reality.
And so when everybody on the bottom unites against the top, it's going to be way more collectively.
We've seen hints of it this year with what happened with, post George Floyd.
Right.
And, with the other police killings.
With Breonna Taylor. We got to say her name. And actually, locally, the Wauwatosa Police Department is participating in unacceptable behavior with multiple incidents. Yeah. Joseph Mensah is an officer that has participated in I believe 3 shootings in the last 5 years.
He's still on paid leave, right?
He's still on paid leave.
Yeah. So you know what?
So this song essentially was like originally about how like, there is no social revolution, like whatever, like we're not doing anything about it. And I guess, at this point we are, and we should.
But are we taking it far enough? So let's listen to Descent of Dissent, and we'll be back after that.
Even murder so cliche, we'd have to kill them all.
So that was Descent of Descent. And next up, we're going to skip a track and go to the 5th track on the album. And that's the self-titled Murder Generation from the album Murder Generation from the band Murder Generation.
Yeah.
And so what the fuck makes a band name a song, an album, both after the band name? Seems a little repetitive. What the fuck?
Well, you know, it was weird because, you know, one of the...
What came first? The song, the band name, or the fucking album?
The song.
All right.
The song came first. And this was a very cohesive arrangement between myself and Rich. It was in the early days, so we were doing a lot of things together. Like, we were at a position where we could, like, you know, meet up at a coffee shop or meet up at a bar, and we could, like, you know, go over, like, you know, Rich had the bulk of the lyrics. He's the primary lyricist and whatnot. And you know, this song is like is a culmination of you know, kind of our general thoughts of, you know, where we're at as a society, like where you know, murder has become a very acceptable thing, you know, where we both talk about, like, you know, serial killers a lot and school killings, and
would you
and
consider,
how media blows a lot of that out. And we are kind of like, I mean, primarily Gen X, like
Right.
Our generation is like very fascinated by murder, and that's a thing that's just very acceptable. And
would you consider the start of that Columbine? Would you consider like the start of the quote unquote murder generation? I mean, it started before that, you know, with things that led up to it. But would you consider that like the inciting, like, thing that
absolutely not.
No? What would it be?
Manson.
Then? Yeah. Really that far back?
I mean,
if we're talking, I'm talking about Generation X, our generation. You know, we're late Gen Xers. Our generation,
for us,
okay,
it's like the fascination, like was like the, I guess maybe the apex was Columbine,
right?
But I mean, I think prior to that, you know, you had, like, we grew up in the 80s as children,
right,
seeing Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy. We saw you know, we saw the Manson interviews from the 80s on, like, I mean, you know, the Dateline type shows and whatever. So, you know, we saw that as a completely acceptable form of entertainment.
And some people idolized it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, some people started to turn these.
It just increased. I mean, you know,
killers into rock stars.
I don't mean to, like, you know, bag on the media as much as I do, but, you know, obviously the media had a huge role, like the sensationalism of murder.
But somewhere in our generation, you had these killers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you had these artists and musicians that were inspired by these killers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go, for example, Marilyn Manson. You know, naming everybody in the band after a serial killer and a model. You know what I mean? So you take the idea of fame and the distortion of fame when you have, like, somebody that's like a fucking killer and they're idolized, and you bring that together into this sick, twisted version of a rock star, right? So, like, and then you have people that are inspired by a band like that, like the kids from Columbine. They're inspired by Marilyn Manson.
Were they, though? Because they actually,
were fans. I'm not saying they were inspired to do what they did.
No,
but I'm saying,
but there's been a lot of things to show that like was not a determining factor of what they did.
No, I'm not saying that.
I don't want to put that out there, because I actually think
No.
a lot of the Columbine thing was a result of, like, bullying and the kids.
Yes. I'm not saying that it's the cause of it. I'm not saying that, but they were inspired by things like that, by people that listening to music that was talking about the celebrity of death, the celebrity of murder, the celebrity of, you know, hypocrisy, whatever it was. You know what I mean? And then they look at the hypocrisy in their lives, at their schools, with their friends, you know, and they're outcasts anyway, you know, and then they take it a step further and become, the circle completes when they become the killer. You know what I mean? And it becomes a cycle. And then we all watch, you know, we watch the Dateline specials. We watch, you know, whatever it was back 20 years ago when, you know, it happened, but we watch the documentaries and we're obsessed with it. And we listen to podcasts to this day. How many podcasts have been made probably this year about the Columbine murders?
Stupid
You know what I
Netflix
mean?
specials and Amazon stuff and like whatever.
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
we probably haven't listened to them.
But about serial killers in general. I mean, it's,
right.
I mean, I, for me, like, I mean, it's more the psychological perspective and whatever, but it's just like, I think really starting, with the Manson thing though, it was like, you know, what would get people to, you know, participate in that sort of activity? What would get people to participate in
a cult?
In a cult that would like make them think that all this is okay and you're going against the status quo. And what is the ultimate to going against the status quo? And in our society is committing murder. And whether you think it's right or wrong, I'm not even going to speak to that. But it creates a generation of people where it's like, well, I'm bored. You know, I mean, like, that's like one of the lyrical things is that we kill because we're angry. We kill because we're bored. We kill because we're medicated. We kill to be adored. I mean, that's actually the lyrics that I sing. And, you know, this is a dual lyric song. And we also made it like actually one of our popular songs. The lyrics are dark as hell. And we took a cue off of, you know, certain like maybe pop punk things, and we put some modulation in there where it's like we're gonna elevate it to this like, oh, we kill because we're angry, we kill because we're bored, you know. So I mean, you'll hear it in a second where it's like a lot of it is written based on what we just talked about, but also there's a lot of sarcasm.
Sure.
In the song, and apparently, since I'm the queen of sarcasm, my lyrics
since I'm the queen of sarcasm,
my lyrics are sang as such.
These are your lyrics?
No, well, these are actually a culmination of both of us, and a lot of the music on this. This was a very collaborative a thing between Rich and I, like as far as music and you know, I don't think normally Rich would write something as like seemingly poppy as this one, because it's more on the poppy side.
It's a little poppy.
It's a little poppy.
It's a little poppy, but I dig it.
It comes
so
here.
Let's listen to Murder Generation from Murder Generation by Murder Generation.
You think that we're confused, think that we're afraid, turn us into psychopaths, say that we're to blame, say the world is dangerous, if you only knew, all the voices in our heads, loud as one as you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so that was Murder Generation from Murder Generation by Murder Generation. So we know how you and Rich met in high school 50 years ago.
Thanks,
How
sir.
did you guys hook up with Tom?
Well,
Your drums, Tom.
so finding a drummer to play in a punk band
It's
or
fucking
finding
hard.
it's horrible.
Yeah.
And it was weird because like Rich and I had started this like musical endeavor. I mean, we were switching back and forth between punk and industrial because like we weren't really entirely devoted to one scheme because we have multiple interests.
Yeah.
And actually there was kind of like a disconnect between Rich and I for a brief period of time, and then Rich reconnected with me and was like, dude, I just want to do a punk band, like let's just like do that, because he knew that was my thing.
Yeah.
And we asked multiple people to play drums, and I had actually previously asked Tom a year prior. Tom, I know through an ex-boyfriend. I've known him for quite a few years. Tom has been kind of a staple in the punk rock scene for the past 20 years in this city. He actually mostly plays guitar and does vocals. He was in he had his two that I'm aware of. Like he was in I think it was Kickin' Chicken, but I wasn't familiar with that band. But he was also in Age Gap, and he was in I always say it wrong. I'm gonna say Metalomica, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but whatever.
Okay.
But he's super creative and super whatever, and he plays guitar mostly, and he's a vocalist mostly. He's also played bass in some bands and whatever. The reason he started playing drums was because of the necessity of like, hey dude, like we need a fucking drummer. And so I asked him actually a year prior, and almost I think he rejected us at first because he was playing drums in another band. And then like almost a year to the date, I think it was like New Year's Eve the following year. Like I asked him on New Year's Eve one year, and then I asked him on New Year's Eve another year, and he was finally like, yeah, I just quit my other band. Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, we were, and then from there, it's been, it was actually a very symbiotic relationship because Rich and Tom have a lot of eclectic interests, just even outside of music. And I always told Rich, I'm like, you'll love Tom. Like, you guys have a lot of things in common. And ever since then, everything is like history.
Well, I mean, Tom works in video editing, right?
Yeah, Tom, I believe, Tom's been in video editing for over 20 years.
And Rich, does tons of audio editing
and that's like a big focus for us, is that we want to do a lot of we like to create a visual with the experience. It's not really actually about us. Our lyrical content is very important. Our visual content to support the lyrical aspect is very important.
Talk about that. What's the image on the front of your record? So if you do go to where and buy a record?
You can go buy our records on Bandcamp, www.bandcamp.com/Murder Generation, or you can go buy it on our website at murderation.com, or you can go to our Facebook page, Murder Generation, or you can friend me on Facebook or send me a message on Facebook, because I do check my spam and like whatever, and you can order it directly from me, and I will get it all arranged to get you a record. The image on front on top,
cool as fuck.
It's actually very aggressive. It's a kid.
What is it? Explain to the audio listener.
I can't. Well, so Rich came up with this image, so I can't speak to exactly like where it came from or how it came, but I do think that it's very valid.
It's a child
beating another child with another bat. I mean, it's like,
it's a child laying on the pavement on the ground, a black and white image, and it's kind of posterized, so it's deep blacks and whites, and just one child standing over another child almost emotionlessly.
I mean, there's no emotion,
beating him to death.
And I mean, Rich is actually really good at finding stock images and manipulating them and making them work however they work. So I can't speak to exactly where this
It's a cool image. It
image-
works with the band name really well.
Yeah.
I mean, the black and white. I like the typeset.
I mean, actually, the thing too is that I want to reference.
Mhm.
Well, I don't think the logo is on here, but if you like look at our logo really, really close, it's a manipulated stock image of a very infamous scene, and it's actually Dylan Klebold
Yeah.
from the Columbine shooting, and like
Well, there you go.
it's we didn't want to make it, so it was
Overt.
yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks for
Yes.
finishing my sentences.
No
I
problem,
appreciate
dude.
it.
That's why we're friends.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a very dramatic image, but we didn't want to make, we're not trying to like make things any like super obvious, but it's like,
You have
there's
to talk about this shit. You have to talk about. You're not necessarily.
but we grew
glorifying
up in this.
Yeah, this is the
This
shit
is
we
our
grew up in.
life. This is the things that we understand.
And
These
it's been normalized in the next 2 generations that have come after us.
Like,
It's
why
been
are we
normalized
here?
in their lives?
I mean, ultimately, you can look in hindsight and be like, why are we here? And why are we singing about this stuff? And it was like, well, we grew up in a generation where it was like, things were really fucked up. And then also social media showed up and made it more fucked up.
Well, what did the sources say?
Yeah, well, yeah, dude. I mean, is that a segue? Are
It
you
is-
trying to,
it was-
trying to do a segue
I
here?
was trying to segue a little bit.
Yeah, okay, well, that was a shitty segue. But anyways, I'm going to say,
The next song is Sources Say.
the next song is Sources Say. And the reason that we're picking the select songs that we're singing is or playing is because these are the majority of
Because
the
those
ones.
are the ones you have something to say about.
These are the ones that I know the most about, and
Yeah.
I can't actually speak 100% on a lot of this shit. Like, I bet you could have Rich on this show, and he's gonna tell you things that are absolutely disconnected from what I just say. But you know what? That's the beauty of music. Is like, I sing these lyrics, I say these things, and this is what it means to me, and that's the beauty of
It's
music.
interpretation,
And
right.
it's
And the listeners should hear whatever
but there's
they wanna
also
hear.
and I feel like that's how, like, I mean, I listen to a lot of like Descendants songs. Like, Descendants is one of my favorite bands, and the things that they're singing about, like, my interpretation is whatever, and I'm actually kind of disappointed when I find out what they are for real.
Yeah.
So sources say, obviously, we're very anti-media, we're very anti-fucking mass media, and one of the biggest things that you hear in fucking media of any type is sources say, and it's hard to believe anybody about anything these days because they say sources say. And well, like, what are the sources? But they're protected by the First Amendment, and you don't have to but now it's pretty much, you can just say sources say, and anybody will believe you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're at.
Well, what do the sources say? Let's find out.
We can tell you anything and still you will believe. The reality we furnish makes you easy to deceive. We'll spin your thoughts so fast that most you won't be compelled to pass along the stories like you thought of them yourself. And
All right, so that was Sources Say. And next up is Ambassador. It's the last track off the album, the last one we're going to talk about tonight. Tell me a little bit about Ambassador.
All right, well,
There's a little contention over this song, right?
there's contention over like Rich doesn't like to talk about the song.
He doesn't like to talk about it at all.
No, he doesn't like to talk about.
But he
no,
wrote
no,
it,
no,
right?
No, no,
He
no.
wrote it.
No. Okay, so the way the song starts off, like when we play it live, it's a song about losing control.
Yeah.
And it's called Ambassador for a very specific reason. We talk about this. We do kind of talk about it on a limited basis, but you know, it was a period of history that's actually very significant to us. Because we live in Milwaukee. We also went to high school almost right next door to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment.
About 3 blocks away. We went to high school together.
Like
3 blocks away
Yeah.
from where his apartment
Yeah,
building
so I started high school a year before you. So like for me it was like I started high school in the end of August of 91 and Jeffrey Dahmer was actually caught in July of 91. So I was like, I'm just randomly going to this high school that's right down the road from, you know, apparent serial killer, and then you know
the
high school of the arts, and it was a great school, and I have nothing but props for that school. Like I probably wouldn't have made it through high school without that school, because it like everybody says, was it like Fame, and like in hindsight it kind of was, because we had
a little bit like Fame.
Yeah, we had people playing music in the hallways and dancing and doing all that shit. Absolutely. And like whatever.
Yep.
But Ambassador is also the name of a hotel. And in Milwaukee. And there's a very specific incident. This is actually one of the murders that Jeffrey Dahmer was never actually convicted of. I believe it was it wasn't Stephen Hicks, it was the other guy. Anyways, there was so like Jeffrey Dahmer had gone like between Ohio and Milwaukee, and he was living with his grandma in West Dallas, and like he went to the Ambassador. You know, he met somebody, went to the Ambassador, and he got super drunk or like whatever happened, because we all know that, you know, he had an alcohol problem. And he couldn't control himself. I mean, actually, the song really is about losing control, and like, you know, he was able to maintain, like, he killed somebody, he was able to maintain this this fortitude of like, I've gone 8 years without like killing anyone, supposedly. You know, you never know. Actually,
I've kept the beast in this long.
Yeah, I've kept the beast in this long. And then he got blackout drunk, and he ended up murdering somebody at the Ambassador Hotel. So he says, you know, obviously that's the one that he wasn't convicted of again. You know, and then he somehow like got the body into a suitcase and like took it out and like left and like whatever. So I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of specifically related to that incident in a vague way, and it's also about like, it's more about the psychology and the mindset of like a person that like kills somebody and then just decides that they or just like can't control the monster within, and then like they lose control, and like what causes them to you know, do that sort of thing. So
I know he's
don't kill me, Rich, for disclosing information.
So where does the point, I know you can't exactly speak for Rich, but you know, where does the point of contention come in with him? You know, like where does he disagree with you on the song?
Well, I mean,
is it that he just doesn't like to talk about the origin of it, or is it, I mean, is what it is? He just doesn't like to talk about it.
I think the thing is that it's more about the psychology of it, and it's not necessarily about. I mean, the incident inspired it, and but
it's more.
But the song is more about. No, it's not a metaphor. It's more about the psychology of that particular incident. You know, like I didn't think I'd do it again. You know,
what drives the person to...
like, well, you know, you did it once and you were able to go 8 years without doing it. I mean, and that was actually what kind of like set it off, you know. So I mean, this is one of the things that's in our history and like whatever, and you know, so it's like, it's not specifically, I guess, maybe about
It's using it as an analogy, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, not a metaphor, but
much.
more of an analogy.
It's more of an analogy of
Okay.
like what, I mean, I guess you could say that about any sort of serial killer
Well-
is like what gets them to that point.
Let's listen to the last track on the album, and it's called Ambassador, and you decide for yourself.
No creative outlet for my impulses and pain. Nobody to understand the thoughts I entertain. My comfort in the permanence, which we all connect. Misconstrued as violence, my hands are from the neck. I didn't think I would do it again. Demons still crawling through my head. I didn't think I would do it again. Feels that I fought both. I didn't think I would do it again. I get the drink went to my head. I didn't think I would do it again. Why can I fight it? Hate to see you suffer, so I try to ease your pain. Hate to see you bleed, so I put holes inside your brain. Mean no disrespect, in fact, the opposite is case. Makes your life so simple, no worries are erased. I didn't think I would do it again. Demons still crawling through my head. I didn't think I would do it again. Feels that I fought those. I didn't think I would do it again. I get the drink went to my head. I didn't think I would do it again. Fuck can I fight it? Pictures tell the story of my hell. Caught between an instinct and a spell. Still I thought I had it all in check. Now my life's become a fucking wreck. I didn't think I would do it again. Demons still crawling through my head. I didn't think I would do it again. Feels that I fought those. I didn't think I would do it again. I get the drink went to my head. I didn't think I would do it again. Fuck can I fight it? I didn't think I would do it again.
All right, so that was Ambassador from Murder Generation, last track off the album, and whatever.
Don't tell Rich I said anything.
Okay, I promise I won't tell him. And whatever you think of Ambassador, that's what it is. So fuck you.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you have a live stream coming up, or Murder
We
Generation
do.
has a live stream coming up.
Absolutely.
What the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing like so Paul Knievers, who owns Knieverland Studios, who's also the producer of our record, and
This
he's
is
going to
where
be
you recorded. The
yeah,
record?
that's where we recorded and mastered, and he's also going to be the producer of our next record.
Mhm.
We love him. He does amazing things for Milwaukee, and he's been doing great things for forever. And we're doing a live stream. He created this quarantine safe, like socially distance appropriate, like stage, and they got pro lights and pro video and pro sound and whatever to make a super legit live stream in these crazy times that we're doing. So we're doing that at his stage October 17th. You can find it on our YouTube channel. It's our Murder Generation YouTube channel. We're gonna connect it obviously at Facebook, and
You guys got all your videos up there and stuff too. Don't you have a couple videos you made?
yeah, we got some also some videos. They're not live videos. We don't have a full live stream yet. This will be our first like full live stream. We're gonna have some interesting background videos. There's gonna be 10 new songs. We're actually gonna play almost all of the new songs that we have coming for our new record.
Cool.
So you can get a taste of that. You can also find it, I believe it's going to be also shown on Twitch,
Oh, cool.
which is a thing that
Yep.
these youngsters are doing. So we'll provide links and details and information on our website, www.murdergeneration.com. We're going to also have an event page on our Facebook page, and also like on each of our personal pages and whatnot. You'll be able to find information. There'll be a lot of promo blasts going out like in the near future once we get the event set up. So I'm very excited because to have the pro sound, the pro lights, and for us to actually incorporate a lot of video
Absolutely
is important to us because our music is very much about the lyrics and visuals that are created. You know, it's not about us, it's about the music, and it's about the artistry of the whole thing. So
1, 2, 3, fuck you.
yeah, 1, 2, 3, fuck you.
So you guys are working on new music too right now. You're practicing ignoring social distancing
Fuck
guidelines
off.
and
Well, we're not ignoring them.
well, you know, kind of saying, you know, fuck
I
the
still
world,
have
right?
not been to a grocery store since March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we all take the acceptable risks that we
I work at a very small company.
Yeah.
I have 2 other coworkers.
justify yourself, motherfucker.
Well, I mean, nobody needs to fucking know my business, but like, I mean, I'm extremely careful. I like yeah, I don't know if
Nobody
this was
cares.
mentioned, but
Nobody cares.
dude, shut
Don't
the
worry
fuck
about
up. I have my mom's 80th birthday is on Monday, and I live with and care for her, so I
Yeah.
take a lot of
I know
fucking
you do.
precautions to make sure that I'm fucking safe.
I know.
And I actually hate the area that I work because the people in that area don't take as many precautions. So that's one of the reasons that I mentioned earlier that I
I know.
have to.
And clearly, I let you into my home to record with me.
Yeah,
so
and
I don't.
Travis is currently laid off and he doesn't fucking go anywhere. Or if he does, I know he's
Hey,
safe.
take
Like,
it easy.
whatever,
Take
dude.
it easy. I'm doing a lot. I'm doing
Yeah.
some things, man. I'm
Yeah,
working
no,
some
but
things.
we're not those people that are gathering in bars and restaurants and doing whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
You know, we're
definitely
not.
Definitely not.
You know, we have a bubble, and there are certain people that are allowed in our bubbles, and Travis and I are allowed
We're
in
in
each
a
other.
bubble, dog.
We're allowed in each other's bubbles. Like, you're in my bubble, I'm in your bubble, dog.
We all have a bubble. We
Yes,
all
we
have a
are.
bubble, and that's the reality of 2020. You have to have a bubble, and hopefully your bubble's better than other bubbles, because there's some serious bullshit bubbles out there that I don't want to fucking be in right now. So
Well, I mean, I'm also of the belief too that if I gotta like contract my bubble, like we can't do
I want to
this.
be with
like,
my bubble.
well, no, I mean, if I gotta contract it, like, and I can't come here, like, I can't come here. Like,
Yeah.
I get that.
I
I
know.
understand. Like, I'm a advocate of wearing masks and all that sort of stuff. Like, so, and I sanitize and wash my hands and do all that thing, all the things. But my contact is very limited because of the situation that I'm in. So,
but despite that, you find a way to keep producing music, and you got the live stream coming up. You're working on a new album,
Yeah.
and you're over 40 and you're a woman, which means you should be dead.
I
And
should
you
be dead. I should be chasing fucking grandkids at this point,
You
right?
should be giving up, but you're not. And I admire that about you a lot. That's why
Thanks, man.
you're my friend, and I have you on my show, and the first episode of my show, and I couldn't think of anyone better to have on. So
Right on.
thank you, Trisha
Thank you.
Peterson, for being on episode 1 of Radio Free Galaxy. And this has been Radio Free Galaxy. I'm Travis Lee. Fuck you.